All right, well, good evening, everybody. We're in our new venue over here on our YouTube channel. Welcome to History Fix's Behind the Scenes. Joining me tonight is Mr. Dan Lambert of Lambert Films. Dan, thanks for taking the time to be with us this evening.
Thanks for having me.
So, Dan is with us because he has two projects here on History Fix. Dan is a producer and director, and he and I have actually shared the field of filming and combat together. So we'll get to that a little bit later, but it's a lot of fun. Just as a reminder, a few quick housekeeping notes as we go in, everybody. This is History Fix's opportunity to share a chance for you to hear stories from and interact with people who create the great shows that we have on the platform. The platform is available to you on the web or on 6 branded apps. And right now, with Dan being the guest of the evening, every producer who provides content is given a discount code to share with their fans, and we're going to go ahead and share Dan's here. The discount code Lambert is available for you. You can sign up on the website, www.historyfix.com. Use that, and that will give you 20% off the annual plan for the annual subscription rate for the first year. So feel free to go ahead and use that. Dan, why don't you start by introducing yourself a little bit to us? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm a native Maine filmmaker, been producing film since 2009. I've been in television since the 90s. My main focus is historically focused Maine history stories.
Great. And is that just home, or is there something else about Maine? Is it just regional for you, or why the story there?
Well, I think for me, growing up, the lore of the 20th Maine, you get sucked into that, and it just stuck. And learning how more stories were taking place at Gettysburg, not just the 20th Maine. That's really what drew me in.
Great. Well, we'll come to that in a little bit and come to some of the story there. But let me go ahead and ask, where does the history bug bite Dan Lambert?
Oh, geez. I would say both my parents were teachers, so I was around talk of history very young. And then I think field trips to the Maine State Museum, just interacting with history. And also probably the PBS series by Ken Burns was a big touch point for me.
Great. Well, that's the history side. Movie side, there's a lot of people who love history. There's only a few who are crazy enough like us to go ahead and make it. Where does movie making bite?
Well, I think for our generation, I think it's probably that Gettysburg film in the 90s where it really made history real, I think, for my generation. And that was another touch point.
Okay. And where do you go? Where do you get trained? Where is film school for you, or trade school, or are you OJT? What's your road to where we are today?
I started in TV news for a number of years, and then segued into Maine Public Broadcasting, and started producing there. And now I have my film company, Lambert Films, which is historically based films.
Very good. Very good. Well, that's a great road, and it's a road here. Before we get to Maine at Gettysburg, let's step back one. The first project you gave to us is Forlorn Hope, and it's still there. Set the stage. Tell us about what Forlorn Hope's about and how you chose to do it.
Well, it's about the 1st Maine Heavy Artillery Regiment at the Battle of Petersburg, and this regiment essentially had the highest amount of casualties of any Union regiment during the war. And the story actually originated from David Cheever, the former Maine State Archivist. And we decided to tell the story in a television program, and it turned out to be quite powerful.
Great. What was your favorite part about it?
I don't know. I mean, it's just an incredibly sad story, mixed with heroism. And I think when you learn about that story, you can't help but feel very sad about the outcome, but also very proud of these Mainers who did their duty in the face of what was certain death.
Yeah, it was a wonderful interview and telling the story and crafting there. How did you go about documentaries? Sometimes are written first, they're sometimes shot first and then written later. Sort of how was the workflow between the interview time and the time you started editing?
Yeah, my process is script first, go out and shoot your interviews, then go on location, get the location shots at the historical locations, get the B-roll shots, and fill it in. So that is my approach.
Okay, great. And where did that show go? I know it's shown with us. Have you had any award success? Did you enter it for anything? What did you do with the show? I know we weren't the first home for it.
Yes, well, it initially aired on Maine PBS in 2019, and then it aired on Vermont PBS, and it is nationally distributed through PBS now.
Fantastic, and appears here with us on History Fix. So there's a couple
Yeah,
of different
absolutely.
places you can see it. We'd love to have you watch it here. I tell you, it's really fun to see that because I can see your growth as a historian and your growth as a filmmaker when we turn to Maine at Gettysburg. Why don't you introduce this show for us?
Well, Maine at Gettysburg, I think, like I said earlier, with the 20th Maine, that's what people think about. So when they hear Gettysburg, they think Chamberlain, 20th Maine, story charge down Little Round Top. And Maine at Gettysburg is telling the story of the 15 Maine units that were present at the Battle of Gettysburg over those 3 days. And we're talking infantry, artillery, sharpshooters. There was a lot of stories about Maine soldiers going on there over those 3 days.
Great. And how many interviews do you have in this show?
I'm not sure of the exact number, but we interviewed experts, reenactors, really the people that know these stories intimately.
Cool. Well, I've been able in my career to interact with several groups from Maine, both living history and filmmaking. So there were some faces. If I didn't know the names, I knew the units from years past. But you've got Gary Edelman from the American Battlefield Trust there. What a huge personality online in history these days. Talk to me about interviewing him.
Well, it was one of the windiest days that I've ever experienced at Gettysburg. We were going to start at Stevens Knoll, but it was so windy, and we have devices that you can put on a microphone to mitigate the wind. It wasn't working. So
Wow.
Gary mentioned, well, why don't we go to Lee's headquarters to do the interview? And I was like, okay, I can do that. So we filmed inside the headquarters, and it was amazing. So it's literally probably 200 feet from where the 5th Maine was stationed on the first day.
Sounds like you might have ended up exactly where you should have been.
It was an experience.
Cool, cool. So on the cover of the show, and we'll take a look at the cover here, there's the word Dirigo on top of it. Talk to me about that, because that seems to have significance, yet I don't recognize it.
Sure. Well, Mainers would know that Dirigo is the state motto, and Dirigo in Latin means I lead. And so if you visit Maine, you'll notice a lot of stores are named Dirigo. It's a point of pride for us Mainers.
All right. Talk to me a little bit about the team that you work with when you're doing this. Who is Lambert Films? Who else do you take with you? What's the world you circle both? We've met people in front of the camera. Talk to me about the team hiding behind the cameras.
Sure. Well, I'm the primary member of Lambert Films. I utilize a team of narrators. John Hickson is a fantastic narrator, which we used on the piece. David Cheever, the former state Maine archivist, is my go-to history person. He just knows every Maine Civil War story and is a great resource. So I lean on him quite a bit. And then I have some local production folks here that I grab in the field for when we have shoots.
Great. Well, it looks like a wonderful team. And Cheever's not only a great historian, but man, what an interview to have in both of these projects. It's fun to listen to him spin a story and bring history back to life.
Yeah, he can he can tell a story, that's for sure.
Good. Well, we both spent some time together getting footage for our own various projects as I shoot and produce as well as you do. We were at the 160th at Gettysburg. Talk to me about what you were working on there and sort of what's it like working with living historians? Because I know you were more attached to one organization where I was moving around just shooting larger, broader things.
Sure. Yeah, I was attached to the Third Maine, which is a fantastic living history group here in Maine, and it's Captain Matthew Bray, who is a historian in his own right, as of most of the guys in the Third Maine, men and women actually. So I was attached to them, and out on the field was amazing. I've never had that large of an experience on a battlefield. I mean, it was thousands of soldiers firing at the same time. So it was one for the ages.
Yeah. So what's it like? How do you generally, this is the outlier because that's the largest event I've seen in 9 or 10 years. So we don't get to see those that often, and I hope we see them a little bit more. But when you're staging B-roll or needing to get something, what's your workflow like working with them?
Well, I generally reach out to the reenactor groups here. The Third Maine is my go-to group because they're on point with everything. And I usually follow them to the events that they're going to. So I try to get my B-roll there, also highlight the historical organizations that they're working with video after the fact. Like recently we were at the Narramissic Historic Farm in Bridgeton filming, which is this great period correct farm. So I try to help organizations in Maine along when we have these shoots.
That's great, and gives them some marketing that they probably don't have dollars or teams for. So it's a great, a very symbiotic relationship with things.
Absolutely.
So, well, we run through the list here. Let me just go ahead and ask you this. What is one historic story that you would love to tell that you haven't been able to yet?
Well, I am working on a short about the charge of the Irish Brigade at Fredericksburg. Obviously, there isn't an Irish Brigade connected to Maine, but there was a author from the 32nd Maine who witnessed the charge and penned a poem, which is a very moving poem about that storied charge at Fredericksburg. So I'm doing a longer piece on that charge, and it's a remarkable story.
I'm intrigued to see what you do with it. Man, I tell you, I'm going to make a short film after doing documentaries. Let's just do the charge of the Irish Brigade. Talk about biting off a little bit.
I'm drawn to sad, heroic stories. I don't know. It's just something that I've always gravitated towards.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do with it because that sounds like an interesting story there. Of course, that's Fredericksburg in the Civil War. The same question we're going to ask that we ask everybody. What's an era that interests you to tell stories in that you've not been able to yet?
Well, I would say World War II, main stories in World War II. There isn't a lot of documentation about World War II because I guess there was a fire in one of the archives, so there isn't a lot of source materials to use, but that is an angle I would like to approach.
Oh, that sounds like fun. Are you thinking narrative or documentary or both? Is there anything, is it that nebulous or has anything, you don't have to tell it, but has anything more concrete started to hit you yet?
Not yet. For me, it's really finding a story that I really connect with and then fleshing that story out and figuring out how to tell that story.
Okay, well, that's going to be a good one. It's an era with a ton of opportunities with a lot of people who serve both men and women here on the home front, over in the Eastern Theater, over in the Pacific. There's a lot of opportunities there. Who knows? I might even find you hanging out the bottom side of a B-17 one of these days.
Yay, I'm in. Sign me up.
Okay, great. Well, Dan, thanks for taking the time to be with us. Is there any last thought you want to leave people with about what your mission is or about getting a chance to see things here?
Well, I guess the one thing, the takeaway would be get out and visit a battlefield. Get out and visit historic sites. There's so many stories out there, and it's, a great family activity. So just get out there and learn.
Yeah, and there's only so many hours that we can produce content. There's only so many ways. There's so much more to see across this great country. I have a question here from Tarlin. Says, what has been the most difficult piece to get to come together from script to screen?
I would probably say the 16th Maine at Gettysburg, which was my first Civil War film for Maine PBS. I was learning the craft so I was, building the plane while you're flying it.
Yeah.
So that was probably the most difficult, but also the most satisfying because the result really was impactful.
I love the way you took the primary source and used that in that project. I've been able to see it. Unfortunately, we don't have it yet here at History Fix. I hope we can fix that one of these days, and you and I should talk about that, because the way you take primary source documents and build around it in that case is truly just very interesting. Reminds me a little bit of what was done on the fictional side that Deb Goodrich, who we interviewed last week, did with Thoth's Dragon, only you did it with an actual primary source document. It's just a rich piece, and that's a great piece of history to tell. So that's cool to hear that there's that one. So thanks for that question. Let's go ahead. We'll throw up one more time. If you're interested in supporting Dan and getting a discount on History Fix, here's the code again for 20% off the first year. Use Dan's last name and the name of the company, Lambert, and plug that in. Again, because of the way the software works, that has to be done on the website, and then you can download any of the branded apps and use them wherever you go ahead and stream your video at. So, well, Dan, thanks for coming in. Thanks for sharing some of that stuff. Hopefully you and I see each other on the field again, because that's just a lot of fun to be in the field shooting. But for now, appreciate your time. Everybody, we will see you soon for the next History Fix Behind the Scenes. Take care now.